David, congratulations. 5 years, what a run. Talk a bit about the turn. There are cities like Miami or Vegas, for example, where we didn't think we would see Uber, and suddenly the tides have changed. How come?
Well, I think, hey, Stephanie and Eric, I think that what you see is in the beginning, this is a new service, and people struggle with that. And I think, yeah, we just finally got new regulations and laws passed in Nevada last week, so we'll be on the road in Vegas in July, thankfully, the last major U.S. city. I think what you see is mayors, elected officials, they see it's a lot of people earning a living on the platform. There's a lot of people in their cities who don't have a lot of mobility options, who may not live next to a subway stop, may be hard to get a taxi. And so what you see is I think the market's growing. So there's still going to be a healthy taxi market. But what you see is there's a lot of people in cities who, if they have an option to press a button and get a ride in a few minutes, will choose that option rather than driving themselves. And that's the big vision at Uber. Our CEO, Travis Kalanick, will be talking about later today is how do we help cities solve some of their problems around congestion, around emissions, around more economic opportunity.
David, if there's more competition, if you're right and the market is growing, then in theory more competitors should enter the market, and we're seeing evidence here in New York City that that's happening. Carl Icahn, for example, is investing in one of Uber's competitors. But competition, in theory, should produce one outcome, right? Prices should drop for the end users, people like me and Stephanie. If that happens, something has to give. Either Uber takes a smaller commission from the drivers or the drivers earn less. Which is it?
Well, obviously, Eric, we're not going to have a successful business if we don't have happy drivers out there meeting the demand. And so what we see is as we make decisions around pricing, first and foremost, is what does that do to the driver income? And what drivers want to do, and over 50% of our drivers here in the U.S. drive less than 15 hours a week. You guys know from using Uber, it's a lot of people who might have a full-time job, their spouse might have a full-time job. So if they're out there, they want to be driving as much as possible. You're trying to increase efficiency. And so what you see is when prices drop, drivers do more trips. And so they make more money. And so we watch that very carefully. And, there's a lot of demand out there to use the platform. Uber
David,
works best when the wait times are lowest.
That doesn't address the commission question. If, in fact, there's pressure on prices because of competition in the industry, how does Uber respond?
Well, again, as we make decisions around pricing, first and foremost is what is that going to do to driver earnings? So, we try and find that magic place where you can bring prices down low enough to bring more people onto the platform to use it as a rider. But driver income is maintained or increases. And, we have a service called Uber Pool. It's actually in New York. It's in 3 other cities. It's carpooling. So rather than one person in Uber, it's 2 people going in the same direction. What's fascinating about that is drivers then are on a perpetual trip, where they've always got someone in the car. So even though the price of an Uber Pool trip is less than a normal UberX trip, they're making more money. So that's what our focus on is how do we make drivers more efficient? So if they tap the app, they're driving, they may only drive for 2 hours a day. They want to be driving with somebody in the back seat for as many of those 2 hours as possible.
But how are you going to maintain your competitive advantage over, let's say, Lyft or any new services that come up? You're the first one to the party, but at the end of the day, I don't actually care what service I'm using. I want to press a button, I want the car downstairs, I want it to get me there quickly, and I want it to be the cheapest. I don't actually have Uber loyalty, and I think a lot of other people are in the same case. How are you going to maintain the market position you have?
Well, we've got to continue to innovate and even the service even better. So bring wait times even further down. Make sure that the service, and our drivers are remarkable, as you know. They provide a good service, very friendly, very attuned to customer needs. So we've got to continue to innovate, bring more products. We're experimenting now with the delivery of food on demand.
But do you
so
think
there's a lot we can do with the platform. But at the end of the day, yeah.
Do you think your existing products need to improve? There's a lot of people here in New York City who think since Uber has gotten bigger and more successful, wait times are longer, drivers are worse, cars aren't as nice. So sort of the existing product, many people have said, has slipped back a bit.
And the app still doesn't work that great in this town.
Well, listen, we're trying to improve every day, but I think, the numbers, I think, tell a story of people. We continue to grow. We continue to have people who are making a decision not to drive themselves, maybe even to ditch a car because they find the reliability. So, we want to continue to get wait times down. We want to keep the service up. We want to bring it to more people. And so that's where something like Uber Pool, where you bring that price point down low enough, you're also helping with congestion, because carpooling has been something we've talked about for almost 50 years. How do we get that on scale? And we're starting to see it work in cities like New York and San Francisco. So we think, and our drivers do a remarkable job out there of serving their city. So, of course, any company has to get better, has to innovate, is going to have to be in heated competition. But the big vision of Uber is, how can we help? And our competitors obviously are going to play a role here, too. We want to reduce congestion. We want to have more and more people make the decision not to own a car, because congestion is already intolerable in most global cities. Over the next 10 years, with the population projections, it's going to grind cities to a halt. And the only option is to get less people using a car. And that's where something like Uber. Listen, in New York, what's amazing, I think 5% of taxi trips happen outside of Manhattan in New York City. 35% of our trips happen in the outer boroughs.
Eric, you're
so we're also serving people who didn't have options.
I'm smirking with David because if, in fact, some of the things you say, David, prove to be true, you reduce congestion, fewer people own cars, pollution drops, that's great, but that's a collateral benefit, because your mission is to make money. Let's be honest here. Your investors want you to make money. They don't want to change the world. They invested in Uber because they want a return.
Right, of course. And so obviously we are running a very successful business, need to continue to do so. But I think one of the reasons you see investors having such confidence in us is they see the unmet need. They see that there's a lot of cities out there where people would rather press a button than drive themselves, if the option's there. That they'd rather carpool if it actually works and is efficient. So I think as we build a successful business, there actually will be a lot of collateral benefits for cities. It's actually interesting. One of the reasons a lot of people come to work for Uber now is they're very passionate about that. Of course, they want to be part of a successful business financially and from a growth perspective, but they're also really excited about improving lives in cities where, there's a lot of innovation that hasn't happened over decades.
That's why people sign up to be. That's why people sign up to be Uber drivers.
I don't know too many cab drivers
about improving the life in Singapore.
Well, I think a lot of people who come to work at the company, we're recruiting, and we're over 3,000 employees. A lot of people are coming there because they believe in that mission. But I do think, of course, drivers want to go out there and they want to make sure when they're driving, they're earning good money. Of course, that's first and foremost. But they also feel good about driving people home who might have had a few drinks at the bar.
David,
or making it easier for someone to get to their second job.
You've clearly had different Uber drivers than I have. But let me tell you, I'm an Uber enthusiast, use it all day, every day. You mentioned your investors. Yes. Now that you're at a $50 billion valuation, are you seeing some of those initial investors take their money and run?
Not at all. I think that we're thrilled and really humbled by all the confidence that investors around the world have placed in us. And that's important because that allows us to...
That's impressive.
No. Well, no, they're not. I think that they're really excited about what we're doing, and what their confidence allows us to do is, in addition to improving the core product and service that we talked about earlier, we're obviously investing heavily in countries like India and China, where we think we've got great potential and the business is growing well, in things like carpooling. The technology on that is very, very hard, so we have to spend a lot of money on research and development. So it enables us to work on some of these things that are more future-oriented.